morning. My name is John Giordano. I'm a partner at Citrin Cooperman. Primarily focused on providing attest and advisory services, I serve as co-practice leader of the firm's manufacturing distribution practice. I'm joined here today with Tom McCracken, Client Development Executive for TOTALogistix. Thanks for joining me today, Tom.
Thank you for inviting me, John.
Tom, can you just take a few minutes and kind of give us a little bit more background on TOTALogistix and what you guys do?
For sure. First of all, we're very excited to be on the video with you today. TOTALogistix is a supply chain management consulting firm. We were established actually back in 1991, and we were actually in operations before even FedEx and UPS had their own supply chain divisions. That's how far back it goes. TOTALogistix, we are very proud about the fact that we still today, 30 years later, have our first client that we had back in 1991. We have many clients of ours who are in the double-digit range, like Hitachi, Foot Locker, Konica Minolta. Our average time with a client right now is 11 years. And the reason I bring that up is because we perform based on what the needs are of a company, whether they're big or whether they're small. We identify an issue and we attack that issue. So we basically, within the logistics area, have three main core services that we offer. And one of them is data management, which is really auditing and data capture. Another area is contract management. Contract management is going and negotiating new contracts for carriers. And then a third piece, which is the transportation management system. So as I said, each one of them can be looked at separately, but it always is determined by what the needs are of a company.
Thanks again, Tom. It's a pleasure to have you here with us today. So really one of the reasons why I had asked you to join me today, because as we continue to work through this COVID-19 pandemic and the effects that it's had on our clients' business, we at the firm here have developed what we refer to as a transition playbook. A playbook that summarizes a complete list of services and solutions that can help our clients navigate through crisis management, recovery and reinvention, and ultimately the future as it's reimagined. In addition to things like cash flow forecasting and projections, or doing an endurance assessment, helping to guide companies through programs such as the payroll protection program or EIDL loans, one of the things we consider is to identify strategic external resources that we could bring to our clients that could both provide cost savings as well as value-added solutions to help companies ramp up as business starts to open back up. So with that in mind, is there something that companies can be looking at right now that could either produce results and potentially put some money in their pockets today?
For sure. John, it's a changing world today. COVID-19 has, unfortunately, it's a pandemic that affects individuals, but it's also affecting all businesses. Whether it's plus or minus, there are some that are thriving and there's many that aren't. But the world is changing. The way we did business before is changing, and companies need to realize that. A simple little thing, well, it's not a simple little thing, it's a big thing, is a company has to decide whether they're going to continue to, let's say, source their products from China. Are they going to nearshore? Are they going to do it here? And then what are the implications of that? What are the implications of having now to ship B2C instead of just B2B? Well, now all of a sudden parcel shipping comes into play. It sounds simple, but it's not. Okay, there's so many cost implications, so many operational implications. So what we do as a company, as I mentioned, we go in and we start looking at and identify the areas that we can reduce costs and also help the operations become more efficient. So in a situation like transportation rates, it's a great time right now to go out and negotiate transportation rates today. Why? Because transportation rates, for the most part, are down. Volume is down in the United States. So you almost have to strike with the tire. What is it? The whatever's hot. But
the iron's hot. Strike when the iron's hot, Tom.
The iron's hot.
Come
right.
on.
But the point is that you have to do something, and that's what we do. Okay, one of the things that we do is come in, look at your data, and analyze your data, compare your data to industry information plus our own clients, and utilize our leverage that we have out in the marketplace. And we go after. And today is a great day to do that, because 2 months from now, 3 months from now, 4 months from now, it might be too late. Because if once business starts to come back again, right, it will, the costs will, or the cost to you as a company are going to rise. They are going to rise. So again, that's something we can do today. There's other things like identifying if you are going to have to ship more in the parcel world. Well, that's an area that you cannot allow to become a burdensome cost. You can't just ship it out. You have to know what it costs. You have to have a fair price for as it goes out the door. You as a company, if you are going to upcharge your transportation, you need to know what the actual transportation is to be able to do so, because you need to be competitive. And competition right now is going to be very important. You have to be ahead of the curve. So that, yes, to answer your question, there are many things, like I just mentioned, that we can identify for a company and do something about it today before it's too, I'll call it before it's too late. You can't be behind the curve here.
Thanks, Tom. And it seems to me, as you were walking through this, in the opening you had mentioned 3 primary service lines that TOTALogistix offers. What you kind of went through, is that the data management? Is that what the focus is in kind of what you went through, as if what is the things that a company could be doing right now? Is it the data management? And if so, can you just walk us through that in a little bit more detail as far as what you guys can do to help a company maximize, that sort of cost savings and that area of performing their business?
For sure. Data management really is the beginning point, right? What data management is, it's really 2 pieces of information. It's 2 pieces, right? Number one, it's auditing bills. It sounds like a simple process, but it's not, okay? Most companies do not truly audit their bills. And companies are losing a lot of money, a lot of money they're paying their carriers because they're not really auditing line by line, invoice by invoice. Okay, so that's number one. Number two is the data that we get out of those invoices over a period of time allows us to construct a better picture on how to go about negotiating rates for you in the long run, right? We can take that information and start building I'll call it an RFP or a plan on how to move forward. Data management can also be a source. Again, it's data. It is data. So what's important about data is you can do many different things with the data. As I just mentioned, you can use that data to negotiate contracts. But one of the things that's so important, and companies are finding, they have to find other ways to become, more efficient and get more revenue, and also become more profitable. And I'll give you a very quick example. We have a company, a client, that's a food manufacturer that has been with us for close to 8 years. And they came to us and said, look, data management, you have all this data. Can you, and they described an issue they had. And the issue is that they thought that many of their shipments to their customers, it was cost prohibitive to some extent. It was costing them more to let's say, ship from New York to Iowa to a specific customer. Well, we did an analysis, item by item by item, came out with a cost per piece for them. They found a median line, right? The median cost of shipping. So anybody below that line was fine, but everybody above that line, well, it technically cost them more. Then we drilled in a little further, and we found which clients of theirs were above the line and which items were above the line. They took that information, and when they put together their pricing for the following year, they put I'll call it like an extra penny, an extra 2 cents, an extra 5 cents into that cost of that good, of that product. And their revenue increased, their profitability increased because they cut into their cost of transportation. So again, let's go back to how valuable that data is, right? You can utilize that data in many different ways to save money as a company, and not always to just save money, but also to become more efficient. Of course, it does. Like the example I gave, sometimes the market will not allow you, to go, too high, with their pricing. They had one of their clients is Walmart. No, they're not going to go to Walmart and dictate to Walmart, but they have many other customers that they can do this to. So that was just an example of how data management can be utilized for a company.
It was very, very, very insightful, Tom. I appreciate that. And it sounds like, in addition to providing this, it seems like you're able to capture a lot of data that companies can utilize and help them run their business a little bit more efficiently. And in some regards, it seems like you've been able to use data management to almost create a profit center, which is something that clients could explore. So I just want to ask you, can you talk to us a little bit about, before we move on to your other service lines, how long does it take to set up a data management and ballpark? Obviously every client situation is different, but what does a cost structure look like for this type of service, for anybody that would want to explore just specifically the data management?
Data management is very easy to set up. We can get a client up and running within a week or two. Okay. And we will expand it as time goes on. Okay. But we could get a client up within a week or two. What takes sometimes a little longer in time are things like us integrating directly into their accounting system. Okay, because what that does is it makes that whole transaction paperless. The invoice comes in, and all associated paperwork along with that invoice, it all gets scanned, digitized, and then we can, if need be, or if we actually would like, okay, to direct all that information directly into the accounting system, so nobody else has to rekey data. And what's also important as far as COVID is concerned is one of the big things about COVID is that people do not want to be touching a lot of paper right now. So paperless is a huge opportunity to be able to become paperless and much more efficient. Think, funny little thing. Think about all of the file cabinets that could go away, right? It's amazing, but there's a lot of paper. So within a week or two, we could be up and running. The cost, this is where data management is, as far as I'm concerned, is a no-brainer for many companies. Okay, the average cost for a company to process an invoice, so audit and process, and I'm not going to tell you that they're going to audit as well as we're going to audit, okay, but is $7.75. That is the average. We charge our customers at a high of $2 an invoice. Depending on volume, it usually drops down to somewhere like $1.50 or $1. If we're talking parcel, there is a different charge for parcel. But it's basically the same in line. So think about that right off the bat. $7.75 for an average cost to a company versus $1. The other part of it is that we provide whatever mistakes we find, we provide 100% of those mistakes back to the client. You mentioned earlier about a profit center. That's where the profit center comes, because of all the mistakes that we find. If you net out the cost that you have to pay TOTALogistix to audit the bill versus what you get back, it turns out to be a profit center. 85% of our clients see a profit. The ones that don't, there could be some different situations, but it also cuts into the price of us auditing the bills. But think about the efficiency, as I mentioned, becoming paperless, right? The reduction of personnel time that it takes to enter in invoices, file invoices. There's so much to it. And now all of a sudden it becomes streamlined. So that's the way a company really needs to start looking at it in the long run. Digitization is a big thing today, okay, especially with COVID. Becoming digitized is huge. And this is one of the first steps to getting that done.
Some very interesting points there, Tom, for sure. And you know, although we have been moving towards a more paperless system in general, you know, especially in the professional services and other types of businesses, I mean, the points you raise in terms of now with this pandemic, people touching paper and moving things around, also concerning the fact that a lot of people now are working remotely from home and be able to access data, you know, from a cloud or network storage rather than the physical paper being in the office. I think those are really good points you raised there. In addition to just the general benefit of having a data management system. But it seems like you guys are capturing all this data, like we said, providing real value on the forefront with this data management, this audit, freight bill auditing. But it seems like once you have that, you know, that seems to maybe be able to segue into like a contract negotiations, because since you have this, you know what the customers are doing. Now, do you work with clients on working with their transportation vendors and negotiating those contracts? Is it? I believe that's something you mentioned before. Can you just give us a little bit more background on what TOTALogistix can do to help in those types of negotiations?
For sure. Contract management is really the most important piece of everything, because, you know, when we talk to clients and we talk to people that are negotiating contracts, it has nothing to do with their abilities. Okay, it has nothing to do with their abilities. They probably do a great job. What they don't have at their disposal is a lot of information. Number one, we break down their information, meaning that company. So we have a really good feel for where they're shipping, how they're shipping, what the classifications are. We break it down to the smallest degree. The other piece is that we get to match it up against other companies, other industry lines based on their segment, based on their sales, based on their spend of transportation. So again, let's utilize information to your company's benefit. So what we do, excuse me, is to break down the data and then build a plan. The plan is not to allow the carrier to dictate the price. We're going to go with information in our hands, right? That's the key. You got to have the information in your hands. You got to prove to them why a certain price for that client is the right price. We go and we put together an RFP. We send it to that carrier and we negotiate it. I said carrier, it's carriers. Okay, it would be multiple carriers. And in some cases, it may only be two. It all depends. It all depends on what they're shipping and the type of shipping they're doing. But the point of the whole thing is that we are in charge. We know what their pricing should be. Okay, where unfortunately a lot of companies today, what they do is a carrier comes in and says, I'm going to give you an offer of, let's just say, $300 to move that load, and they negotiate from that 300. Who knows if that 300 is the right price to begin with? Maybe it should have been 200 to begin with. And that's the point, right? Our average savings for a company is somewhere between 10 and 15%. And in many cases, it's a lot higher, okay? And over time, it continues to grow, right? It does grow because we don't just do this once. We have a reason, a financial reason also, as to why we continue to dig and try and find additional opportunities to lower their costs. And that reason is that the cost to a client for us to do this is technically nothing, because we get compensated on a gain share. So the gain share is, okay, if you, the company, saves money, then we earned money. If we didn't save you any money on a specific shipment, we're not earning any money. So it's really a win-win. They really can't lose. They really can't lose. And the rates, and the last thing is the rates themselves. We negotiate those rates for that company. They're not our rates. They're the company's rates. And that is a big piece of information that a company has to understand and realize. But it's a fabulous program because, like I said, 15%, well, if you have no downside, if you really have no downside, right, it's not costing you anything to do this, then why wouldn't you do it? It's found money.
Yeah. Just thinking about it, Tom, we talked about kind of your fee for that service, how it's a gain share, which is, always something that's on our clients' minds today and all companies' minds because of, the cash crunch a lot of companies find themselves in. So it's helpful to understand, the cost aspect of it. But from like a timing perspective, like typically from start to finish, because again, everything is precious right now. Cash flow is a concern, timing is a concern. So if they wanted to move on something today, like typically how often or how long does that process take to negotiate these types of contracts?
First of all, every company is different. Sometimes their transportation is very technical. It's a little bit, pieces of their shipping are a little bit more difficult to get into the numbers with. But for the most part, we need 3 to 4 weeks of, well, maybe 2 to 3 weeks of gathering data. It all depends also on the company, right? How, if they have information, I have some companies that have given me spreadsheets of all their shipping and all their information. I've had some companies that say I have nothing. So that obviously changes the dynamic there. But for the most part, it's going to take at least 3 to 4 weeks for us to gather information and build a proper RFP. Then there's a time frame, obviously, that we have to wait for responses. But really within, a month and a half or so, we should be able to start to see the benefits of the RFP. It may not be in all modes, okay? Because again, we take each mode separately, right? A mode you're negotiating, you have a different RFP for each mode of transportation. But within that time frame, we should be able to start to see some benefits. And then we are not going to stop. We're going to continue to go down that path. I just can't be very specific on timing just because the data, again, is the king, right? It is the most important piece. Where do I get the data from? And how fast can I get that data in my hands? There are some companies where I'll call it their transportation is really bad. And we can probably do this in a 2-step method, make a first hit and then possibly a second hit. Okay, come back. I'm not pointing fingers at any company. I'm sure they all have good transportation rates, but You know, we have seen some pretty ugly numbers at some, over the years.
For sure, Tom. I mean, we here at the firm are doing a lot of cash flow projections and cash flow modeling for our clients and whatnot. And I think one of the things that you mentioned in terms of transportation management, as we've gone through, your data management and your contract negotiations, just being conscious of time now, maybe you could just walk us through that third service offering that you guys provide in terms of the TMS system. And really, if you could tie in, again, how that could help from a cash flow perspective and really help companies refocus and reimagine how they can ramp up coming out of this.
I think that it's a great point about the cash flow because it is really important. And let me just go back a little bit into the data management area. That is a place where, data cash flow becomes, you can identify cash flow opportunities there. Okay, remember that where our system provides visibility to a client of not only what's coming, but possibly what's in the pipeline. So at the end of a month, if you need to identify what shipments are not going to be part of that month's close, okay, you can do so. So again, it gives you good visibility. Now we go into the transportation management system, the TMS, probably the most important piece of, I'll call it software. It's a SaaS system. It's a software as a service. Can be worked from any location as long as there's a internet hookup. You can be working on your TMS. What's important about a TMS? It's visibility, and it gives you the opportunity to be able to decide how to ship something and know what the price is. So from the order standpoint, meaning when the inception of an order goes through the TMS all the way, and the TMS follows that order all the way until delivery. One of the big things, like I mentioned, for TMS is visibility. You can see your orders all the way through the process. What a TMS does is we can also take, like I mentioned, a shipment. You can give it, you get different pricing for each carrier, and you decide which one you want. You could do least cost. You might have something that needs to be in some place in 2 days. So least cost may not be the option. You might have to pick something that gets it there in 2 days. But you have the visibility of seeing what the price is. You can also take a TMS and add in not only contractual pricing, but you can also put it out to the market into a market of getting a quote. You get the quote back. It then compares the quote, the contractual amount, and then again, you decide which one you want. Just be aware that all of this can be automated as well. Okay, your business rules could be least cost, period, and you send it out least cost. The other piece of this that's so critical is being able to visibly see an order. Okay, you can track that order in one place. You don't have to go to 7 different websites to be able to follow your shipments. You go to one website, our website, and you can track any shipment. Okay, whether it's truckload, whether it's LTL, whether it's parcel. Again, very efficient, right? At the end of the day, it's very efficient. One of the other things that it gives you as far as an opportunity is to possibly consolidate orders, to put them together and put 3 orders that would have went out LTL, and you make a truckload out of it, and you save money doing that. Okay, it's visibility. This system is very smart as long as we set the rules up correctly, right? And but the TMS is critical, I think, and is really in the industry, is becoming a critical piece for companies to realize they do need it. So again, it all works together, right? All three of them works together. Data management, contract management, and then into the TMS.
Thanks for that, Tom. Really, I appreciate you joining me again today. Tom McCracken from TOTALogistix. Just another way that we could provide our clients with a strategic external resource and identify people such as Tom and the supply chain consultants over at TOTALogistix to help companies navigate what they're going through. Again, so thanks again, Tom, for joining us. Again, for those of you that want to revisit our website to see a full layout of the transition playbook, you can do so. And Tom, anything in closing?
I just want to thank you and Citrin Cooperman for allowing me to this time. We're very willing and able to help companies. As I mentioned, we've been around for 30 years. There's a reason why we've been around 30 years. And we do realize that this COVID-19 situation is unique, and we are here to be able to, obviously do business with other companies, but also to help. And I think it is the time that we all need to get out there and kind of work together and figure out what the new playbook is going to be. And it's that new playbook is here.
Thanks, Tom.
Great. Thank you.